Hi everyone, so on this episode of my Disney cast member series, I'm going to talk about getting terminated from Disney World. Now, it does sound quite aggressive, not aggressive, but like harsh to maybe call the term of kind of ending your employment getting terminated. It basically is Disney's way of saying you've been fired. There are loads of ways you can get terminated, which actually it sounds a lot worse than it is. Now, when I was there, I saw loads of people get fired from Disney World. It's just one of those things that happens in any employment, but you also have to remember that the amount of college kids that kind of come into Disney to mess around, to spend the summer in Florida getting free tickets and don't really want to work, and how highly I set and you set your experience as a guest and how you interact with cast members. The bar is usually pretty high, so you expect the cast members and the people that you interact with to be on another level. And when they're not, unfortunately, sometimes it's time to say goodbye. So I'm just going to talk through a couple of ways you could get terminated if you were working on the college program, and kind of why this isn't really a bad thing if you're doing these things, because most of them are illegal. So the first and maybe most talked about way when you're a cast member that you can get terminated is if you drink illegally. Now, it is against the law to drink in Florida if you're under 21. It doesn't matter if you can drink in your own country like the UK at 18. In America, in Florida, the drinking age is 21. And if you are under that, you're a minor, which is weird because being considered a minor when I was in Florida when I was 20 felt really strange to me, because in the UK you're like a fully fledged adult at that point. But anyway, I was under 21, so I was not allowed to drink. And on my pass, which I got for my accommodation, it said in big red letters, under 21. So any security that asked to see my pass or my ID or anything knew that I was not 21 years of age. Usually they will put you in an apartment with other people that are under 21, so you kind of don't get the temptation or anything like that from other people you live with. But it doesn't mean that things like this don't happen. People like to drink. I like to drink. When I was 20, I really liked to drink, and going to Florida for the summer after being at uni was strange to not literally be able to touch a single drop of alcohol. But when I explain what happens when you get terminated, you'll understand why it wasn't a risk that was worth taking. Talking a little bit more about alcohol, ways you can get terminated is, of course, if you get caught drinking it and you're under 21, or it's found in your apartment and everyone in that apartment building is under 21. So there were quite a few apartments that had parties and you could invite someone who's under 21, but if they were there in a place where alcohol was, it wasn't very good. And as I said, it's illegal. It's not just like Disney make up the rules, this is the law. So let me explain to you what happens when you get terminated if you are from the UK, for example. I don't know if it's changed since I went, but this is what the rules were when I went in 2010. Now, when you get your contract terminated or you get fired from Disney World, a few things happens. So your visa, your work visa that you have to get with Disney expires, becomes void because you no longer work for Disney anymore. So you aren't allowed to work in America anymore. Which means that you no longer live in Disney and get to enjoy Disney, but it also means you have about 24 hours to leave the country and get a flight home. So that's it. And they are strict. Like, I knew of a guy that one of his housemates or his friends, I can't remember exactly, was under 21. They got an inspection by the security because they're having a really big party and found him. He's under 21, gone. Like, see you later. And he had to leave within 24 hours. That was what he had to do, which sucks. Like, imagine you're having the time of your life in Disney World and then bam, right, you need to be out of here ASAP because your visa's expired, you need to get back through security, you need to find your own way home, you're done. For the American college kids, it wasn't so bad. Like, they would drink and party when they're under 21 because what's the worst going to happen? But yeah, okay, they'll get in trouble with the law, but they're not going to get deported. So, you know, they were always more willing to take the risks than people from other countries, because also this isn't our country. Like, I know in the UK, and this is maybe not everyone will agree with me, but I find that like there's some laws that you kind of know where you stand. You know, if you get caught, what will happen, things like that. Like, I'm not gonna lie, when I was under 18, I maybe had some alcohol. It could have been at a family meal and I could have some, or New Year's Eve. I remember having a Bacardi Breezer when I was like 15 because I thought I was like the coolest. But then I knew kind of when that was well, it was never acceptable. You know what I mean? Like, there's a time and place that you think it's okay, so you'll do it. You don't know when it's okay in America because you don't live there. That's not your country. So to think that, oh, I'm just going to do this and I won't get in trouble is very ignorant, and I wouldn't recommend it. Like, if you're under 21, don't drink. Just accept that your time you're going to be in Florida, you will not be drinking. However, if having a beer or something, or alcohol, or wine, or spirit means that much to you and you don't really mind the risk, that's on you. For me personally, wasn't worth it. I could drink when I came back. I didn't need it in Florida. There was loads of other things to do, and people will offer it to you. We used to go out for like meals and people would ask us if they want the wine and things or want to try something. I used to always have to be like, no, I'm not 21, but thank you anyway, because it's on you as well. Like, I know it's on the place that serves you, but if you accept it, you've accepted alcohol knowing you're under 21. So just don't do it. Like, that's the big one for me, and that's one of the main things that I saw people get terminated from their contract and terminated from their employment with Disney, was drinking when you're underage. So don't do it. So talking about parties, which I just did a minute ago, you can kind of have a party and you can't. I know Vista Way was like the party complex, so people have parties there all the time. They had pool parties, they have jacuzzi parties, and they have parties in their apartment. Like, we always used to hear about the crazy parties that happened in Vista Way. Chatham was a bit more chilled. We didn't really have that many parties. I mean, quite a lot of the people in Chatham were under 21. I think Chatham and Patterson are like a little bit more chilled, whereas Vista's where you go if you want to have a crazy party. It's like a frat complex. And a funny story while I was there. Now, I obviously don't live in Vista, so this was told to me from one of the people I work with that lived in Vista Way. A guy got terminated from his contract. I'm just going to say, should I say fired? I mean, Disney referred to it as being terminated, but I think just so we all understand what I'm talking about, I'll just refer it to being fired. A guy got fired from Disney because they were having a crazy party, and I think they were playing Truth or Dare, and they dared him to run around the pool and the complex naked. Being as intoxicated as he was, because these parties used to get crazy, he did it. Unfortunately, there's security pretty much all around the complexes. He got caught, yeah. I think he had a couple of other offences against his name, so they kind of kicked him out. But that was fine for him. He was American. He just had to go back to his state. Like, he didn't have to leave the country as such. So they're the kind of big ones that you can get terminated for in your complex and like at home. In your employment, again, there are quite a few. But again, these are like really, it sounds, some of the things, this next one sounds a lot worse than it is. You can get fired for eating a kernel of popcorn if you work the popcorn cart. If one fell out and you ate it, or if you worked the ice cream and you're going to throw the ones, because in the containers that they are out, it's kind of not kept as cool and you can't really refreeze them properly, so if they don't get sold, they get thrown away. Now, if the ice cream's getting thrown away and you decide, well, I'm about to chuck it away, I think I'm just going to have one for myself, you can get fired for that. They wouldn't even think twice about it. Now, I know that sounds crazy. Oh, you have a single kernel of popcorn and you're fired. That's ridiculous. You don't own that popcorn. Like, I know it's the money value is like nothing, but that isn't yours. The ice cream isn't yours. If you take it or you choose to have it without getting permission, and to be honest, most of the time, and sometimes the managers would let you, like if there was stuff left, people would give us stuff and be like, hey, do you want this? It's over, like the manager said it's fine. That's okay. But if you don't get permission from anyone and you take something, food, merchandise, anything, that is stealing and you are fired, like so fired. I just, yeah, it just, I know it's silly, and I know that there was someone on my program that did get fired for just having a bit of popcorn. They were closing it down, clearing it up, and the manager saw them and like, no. Again, some of these people, like, obviously I didn't get terminated, so all of these stories are things I've either kind of witnessed or heard from people I work with. Like on the bus is a great way to share stories and things, and most of these cases I'm not sure what's led up to this. This person could have been doing all these different things and this is like the icing on the cake, but I do know of circumstances for all of these examples where a person's been fired without any prior issues or anything. So obviously the exact example that I'm giving might not have been what they got fired for instantly, but I know that someone who had an ice cream got fired for that. Like, I know that happened because I was on the bus when they were telling all of the people about what just happened to them. So it does happen. Again, why risk it? Like, ask, hey, lovely manager or Disney person, we have loads of popcorn left. Is it possible I can have some? If they say no, be like, okay, you get staff discount. Popcorn's cheap. Like, I'd rather have free tickets to go to Disney every day than $2 popcorn. Well, no, it's Disney, like $10 popcorn. So yeah, that was another thing. Oh my goodness. So I'll tell you about a guy in my role that got terminated because this story makes me laugh. Because it just does. He was a very interesting character. He didn't like the people from the UK that much, and let's just be fair, we didn't like him that much. He was very, I don't want to say racist, but because we're not race, be British. He just didn't like foreign people, and we obviously coming from the UK were foreign, so he used to make loads of smarmy remarks about us, you know, not being as good as America and blah blah blah, and it used to really grind on us. Anyway, he used to brag in the break room about when his shift was coming to an end, he'd made friends with people that worked on Everest, and he wouldn't tell a manager, but at the end of like a few bits of every one of his shifts, he would go and ride Everest a couple of times whilst on the clock. So anyway, one of the guys that I was working for from the UK, just, you know, our manager was asking where this guy was, and this guy from the UK who I worked with was like, yeah, maybe. I think he said he was going over to Everest, which is not his area, which is a bit weird. So maybe you want to go check over there. So they did. I think it was a couple of our managers went over there, and we kind of followed as a big group, like most of the custodians, even the ones that were from America or from Mexico, we all kind of followed to see what happened. And all I remember was him on his own in this cart coming down the drop on Everest, having the time of his life, waving at us all because he didn't see the managers. Us just being like, you're so fired! And all the managers stood there. At the end of the ride, they took him for a meeting and we never saw him again. So, moral of the story is don't be mean to your fellow cast members because that's really mean. And don't do things you're not meant to do whilst on shift. Again, you have enough time to ride Everest, you don't need to do it while you're working. So don't do it. So another way you can get terminated, there are a lot, just so you know. I mean, it's an employment. You know, if I went to work tomorrow and punched my employee, I'm probably going to get fired. So this is just ones that specifically apply to Disney. And I just think it's quite interesting, so I hope you do too. So another way you can get terminated is not necessarily just in your role or in your apartment. It is whilst you're going around as a guest in a theme park. I witnessed this firsthand. I was going on, and by the way, I do not recommend anyone doing this because it is really quite dangerous, and just don't be an idiot on rides. This story is to do with Terra Terra. Now, when you get into the Terra Terra, you obviously buckle yourself in. I have a funny story about how mine wasn't buckled. Well, I was in a car with some guys, and I think some of my housemates were there, and there were a couple of rows in front, and they were like bragging about how if you hold the slack of your seatbelt while you plug it in, there's a gap, and when you go up in the ride, you come shooting out of your seat, and it's like really fun, and you should do that. And they were bragging about it to all the other guests in the car, like, oh, everyone should do this, and no one else did it because we were like, that's not really safe. And then the cast member came around and they pretended they're like holding the slack down. They're like, yeah, it's, we're good to go. And they went shooting out their chairs. Yeah, those rides have cameras on them, and it was all witnessed by the manager of Terra Terra, and the guys made it very clear throughout the ride that they were cast members. They were like, don't worry, this is safe, you know, we work here, we know how it goes, we know what all the rules are, don't worry, do it, it's really fun. We always do it, like shouting it to everyone out in our car. So we did the ride. Everyone was a little bit on edge because they're like, these guys are a little bit, you know, this is, you know, when you have a loud, rowdy group on like your bus or in your train or something like that, and it always makes you feel a little bit uncomfortable. It was like that. Anyway, we finished the ride, and as the doors open as you finish, there were 3 managers stood there. Now, I don't know the managers obviously, but you can tell the managers, they're usually in like a shirt or something sort of quite formal. They've got the Disney tag on. They usually have quite a good lanyard, maybe like a picker on them depending on what area they're in. Anyway, they didn't look happy, so everyone got off and they pulled the 3 guys aside, and me, and being really nosy, hovered around the area, heard a little bit of the conversation, and they took them into the office, and I kind of lost it there because I think they knew I was kind of listening. My housemate Caroline, I maybe mentioned before, she worked on Terra Terra. All 3 of those guys got instantly terminated from their contract, and I think they got in a lot of trouble because of, you know, encouraging guests to be really dangerous on rides, which is really, really bad. Do I have any other good stories about people getting terminated? Oh yeah. How you treat your guests. Obviously, guests can be really annoying, as we will get to a later point in the series. Like, sometimes you want to punch a guest in the face, but you just can't. And sometimes you want to tell them where to stick it, and you shouldn't. But if you do, which I was coming back on the bus from Magic Kingdom after spending the day there, and a guy on there was bragging. He worked in Fantasyland, and he got terminated, and he was telling blah, blah, blah. Because he told a guest who was, I can't remember the situation. They either weren't happy with how something was or asked him to do something, and he basically had enough by this point, and he told them to go themselves. You don't do that. I mean, anywhere. Like, you are representing a brand. I don't think Mickey would have said what this guy said to this people, and he was bragging about it. He was like, yeah, I have to go home tomorrow, but whatever, Disney wasn't for me. Like, I just came here for all the chicks and the free theme park entry and whatever. And I was just like, okay, you deserve to go home. And a lot of people do. I mean, the people that care about their program and the people that really want to be there, stay. The idiots that come for like a summer just because they want to doss about or want to earn a little bit of money on the side but don't really care what they're doing, they're the ones that tend to leave and either get fired or terminated or self-term, which is where you decide you want to quit. And one of the highest turnover areas in the whole of Disney for staff self-terming is Fantasyland. So have a think about why that is. There's a particular couple of rides in there that maybe you just wouldn't want to hear their theme song every single day. But that's kind of it for self-termination. I mean, obviously, be aware that Disney, if you are applying for this, Disney are very strict. Because no offense, like, there are so many people wanting this opportunity. If you aren't up to scratch, there is about 50 other people waiting to take your spot. And sometimes it did feel really impersonal, like, oh, you know, you're just an employee, you're just a number, like, we don't care about you, you're here to do your job and then you are to leave. But at the end of the day, Disney is about the guests and they are your employer. There are rules that you have to stick to, and if you don't, unfortunately, the consequences for people from the UK are horrific. Like, they're devastating. You have to leave. You have 24 hours to leave this amazing place where you've been working, and that's it. Cut all cords. You don't see your housemates again. That's it. You don't come back. And I wouldn't want that on my record for Disney if you ever tried to work with them again. I got terminated from my employment in Walt Disney World. You can't really use them as a reference, and having Disney as a reference on your CV is like priceless. It's one of the best things ever. It's opened so many doors for me. So why would you give all this up? Like, for 3 months, just do your job, enjoy your days off, and don't get terminated. I don't even think I was even close to getting terminated once in my program, maybe once or twice. But try really hard, make the most of the opportunity, learn lots, and hopefully you will be able to work your whole program. So I will see you next time, where I'm going to be talking about some specific stories, about some of the things I had to deal with. I think I'm going to talk about cast member interactions next week and some of the issues I had, because you think sometimes cast members are horrible to you? Imagine how horrible they are to each other. So I'll see you next time, guys. Bye!